The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions, and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
To the candy shop.
I taste just like candy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Ask for Candy, where a bunch of powerhouse women and sometimes a few brave dudes get together to talk about love, sex, relationships, and what it takes to be amazing on the daily. Who I am Candice Harper, lovecoach.com. I teach and inspire audacious intimacy to powerful, professional, grown women who want real relationships from seductive singlehoods. And more importantly, I help hardworking women who have survived abuse become vibrant, alive, magnetic, and passionate so they can easily recognize and create healthy relationships. We are coming to you live from Hamilton's Bakery in Hamilton Heights, Harlem, where the menu includes fresh food all day into the night. You can start with flaky pastries, fresh sandwiches, grain bowls, dinner pizza flats. Child, y'all, I was on a fast the last few days, and so I'm going through all this food. It's making me hungry. Dinner pizza flats, cookies so good you might cry, avocado toast, eggs Benedict, chicken and waffles, brunch nachos, cinnamon rolls, muffins, and they are located one block from the 145th Street 1 station. So come on in. They're open every day. I see on the live we have Elise. Hi, Elise. And Brian stopped by. And Michael Ronan and Stephen Dana. Stephen Dana says, hey, some of my favorite ladies. What's up, Kenya? He's saying hi.
Hi, Steve.
So happy Monday, everybody, and welcome back. So today we're doing things a little different because, sometimes we have people who don't necessarily want to be on camera. So if you're watching on the live, we got some ladies who are off on the side who are going to join in and jump in when they feel inspired. No pressure, ladies. And we have Kenya, who you guys know, who's with us every week. I'm so glad that Kenya showed up. And so,
glad to be here.
Right? I'm glad to have you, honey. So now, if you are listening, you might be listening on your TuneIn app on your smart device to Armed Radio, or you're listening in the garden at armedradioglobal.com. We're also on iHeartRadio, so if you have an Alexa, you can ask for Candy. And for the streamers, we're available on Spotify and Spreaker. That's when you can't just sit and watch. But I love it when you come here live, because I love it when you join in the conversation. I see Lucy, I see Ed. What's up, you guys? And if you're live on Facebook, join my group, the Creative Love Collective, and you can join Armed Radio Group News, so then you always know what we're doing. The call-in number is 1-800-508-5431. And yeah, if you want to email us, right? If they're shy, Kenya, right, you can email me at askforcandypodcast@gmail.com. And any questions you have, if you email them, they will be answered in a later broadcast. Now, this is the time, everybody, whoever's in studio with me, if you have your smart device and you have anything you want to share, if you want to share the live broadcast, or if you just want to share where you are, this is the time where we take a moment to share. I'm going to try to share to my group so that the Creative Love Collective can be watching, and also the Savvy Sisterhood. I want the Savvy Sisterhood to be watching. And those of you who are listening out in audio, you can share the link and let people know what you're listening to, right? We want listeners, we want watchers, we want people getting into the conversation. So like I said, I'm Candice Harper, lovecoach.com. My talent is conversation, my passion is personal growth, and my purpose is to teach and inspire radical self-acceptance in myself and others so that we can all have our best possible love life. And that is why this is a conversation. We're not here to hand down a bunch of rules and rights and wrongs about your dating life. We're not here to shame your love situation. Our only intention is to create audacious intimacy, seductive singlehood, and healthy relationships. So, to that end, tonight and every Monday night, what we're going to do is have a conversation that engages, educates, and or enlightens all of us in the areas of love, sex, and relationships and vibrating high. Tonight's topic, one way to never feel lonely again. And if you guys are watching on the live, you know that the title is Vulnerability is Lit. Because vulnerability is lit. And we're going to talk about what it actually is, because I think it means different things to different people. I think that's why some people might be a little bit afraid of it, because it means different things to different people. So I want us to talk about it a little bit and talk about how strong vulnerability actually is, and how if you are or have ever been in a space of feeling lonely, how vulnerability can be the access, can be the key out of that space, or, to move you through that space. Because I'm a big believer in whatever we feel it for a reason, and it's to show us what we do want. Hi, Lee. Hi, Angela. I love that you guys are here. You guys know I always say what we don't want is access to what we do want, right? So when we're feeling lonely, we can push on through it or go ahead and feel it and figure out what's missing. And that's why we're going to talk about it tonight, right? Mm-hmm. So, are you ladies ready to get started? You ready to jump on in? I have some questions because I kind of want to get a gauge of and you guys on the Facebook Live, you can answer too. So, why do you think, here's the first question. Why do you think it's important that we be a safe space for others? Actually, no, here's a better question. What do you guys think of vulnerability? What, when I say that word, what comes to mind? Who wants to answer first? I have off camera, anonymously. I can tell your first names, right? Because then no one can see you. Can I tell your first names?
We get to say, hey.
Lady 1 and Lady 2, who are completely anonymous right now. What do you got? What's your definition of vulnerability? Right? It's something to think about. We don't often. When someone says that,
the only adjective I think of is raw and open.
Being raw and open.
And being your real self.
I love it. I love that. Lady 1? You agree? What do you think, Kenya? What's your definition of it? Because I want to make sure that we're all kind of talking about the same thing. Sometimes different people interpret different things a different way, and then you get in a conversation and it's we're not, on the same page. What is your definition, Kenya? What is it for you?
Vulnerability to me means unprotected.
Unprotected.
I feel unprotected.
So you have sort of a negative framing around it.
Yeah.
Okay. I get that. And here's the thing about that too. I feel so many of us do. It's that idea of, protecting your heart, that idea of if you expose yourself, then you expose yourself to being hurt, all of that stuff. When we think of vulnerability, a lot of times we think it's unsafe.
Yeah.
And so I think the thing to sort of look at is how do we frame it in a different way that it actually be a strength? What do you think about that, Kenya? Since you were the first to sort of bring that up, and trust me, you're not the only one who sees it that way.
Okay.
I actually have a friend the other day who was saying she doesn't like to cry because she feels like crying is weakness. And we had a whole discussion about
that too.
Yeah. You feel like that too?
No, I know someone who feels that way.
I feel like crying is very important. I feel like it's the way that we express our pain, right? And it's what the body needs to do. My coach, she says, mop them, don't stop them. They need to come. But we are in this culture, it's always toughen up and keep it going and push forward and push through it and that sort of thing. And I say all of that to say, what for you when you think about vulnerability, what are some things that come up for you?
Well, I just told you, I feel unprotected. I feel like if I put myself out there to allow someone else to really, get close or get, close enough to make me feel vulnerable, I feel like pushing away.
Yeah.
But you asked, how could we spin that to make it negative?
Yeah.
I do.
Or how could we spin it to make it make it a strength? What do you think about that?
I really do feel like vulnerability is good for letting honesty show through. Mm-hmm. You can't open yourself up without being honest. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if you're willing to open up to someone and the honesty shows, it's a good thing, but it can still lead to me, it can still lead to pain later on because now they know you better.
They see your soft,
they
mushy
see more
parts.
about you. Yeah. You may not want them to at times. So
I get it. And I think that what you're talking about is something that is very much our cultural mindset, right? It's like that our vulnerability is this precious thing that we have to protect. Even, I don't know if you guys listen to or read Brene Brown. She talks about vulnerability and, how it's to be protected and shared with only certain people. And I have not a different theory, because I love Brene Brown and I totally agree with her on that. But I think that when it comes to when we're in a space of loneliness or dissatisfaction with our love lives, I feel like vulnerability is the thing to look at. I don't necessarily think you should go around being vulnerable with everybody you meet. I think that's, what she's talking about when she says be selective about who you choose. But I think that, and in having recent conversations with clients and, talking about this idea of loneliness, I don't believe that loneliness is a symptom of just physically being by yourself. I think it's a symptom of just not generating any love and connection. And we often think that when we're lonely, it's because we're not being given love and connection. When in fact, it's like usually when we feel like we're not getting it, it's because we're not generating it. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's also that loneliness, areas of loneliness, referencing what you said, figured it's just like the lack of, the first word I thought was belonging, or the lack of self-love is not just the only thing. There's also the negation of that, is the self-hate.
Yeah.
So if someone is sometimes not feeling like, they can connect, they're more intertwined and internal, because they put a wall up.
Yeah.
Not just because they're black, it's also because they put a barrier.
Absolutely.
To that. But I wanted to get back. I don't want to steer your conversation.
No, please. That's what you're here for, honey. That's what you're here for. Open conversation.
Lady number one was, co-signing with, what's your name again? Kenya.
And make sure you speak loud. So that
okay. So the other thing I wanted to share that I thought was interesting about what you said, Kenya, is not feeling like you're more protected. In terms of vulnerability, sometimes they're just layers of that. Vulnerability doesn't have to be one extreme, like everything, all or nothing. The way someone can connect with you sometimes, a vulnerable moment, but they're not completely unprotected. I can say, there are just different ways you can get to a vulnerable point where there's a common ground. Oh,
you've exposed your...
I'm so exposed and someone's going to take advantage of me, or I'm so exposed and someone's conditioning, and we build that layer of resilience and walls to not be vulnerable.
Yeah.
I personally was like that, and then I was like, when I was able to be vulnerable with somebody, I can't stop. I just love it.
Yeah, because it's very strong.
When you be vulnerable with somebody and connect, and they don't really, they cherish you, and you cherish them.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, lady number two. Make me want to say your name. So on the Facebook Live, we have Stephen. Stephen says, vulnerability equals meaningful connection. Without it, connection cannot exist. I agree with that, Stephen. Angela says, OMG, how funny is this? I just organized an event where we talked about Brene Brown and her TED Talk on vulnerability. Mm-hmm. She states that vulnerability is basically uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. The ability to embrace the discomfort can open you up to new experiences, just like what you were just talking about, lady number two. And Pam says, hey, Candy and Kenya, girlfriends. What's up, Pam?
Hey,
and hi, other
miss
Angela.
You.
I have lots of Angelas, right? We miss you, Pam. So the whole point of having all of this is, like I said, to get us kind of all on the same page of one accord, because we want to go back to when we're in a space of loneliness. And I feel like, I'll be the first to raise my hand. I've been in that space before. And if you're willing to say, I've been in that space before, I'm in that space now, you don't have to out yourself. But, this is, I think, an important conversation, because I was reading a statistic that said that loneliness is as dangerous to your health as cigarette smoking. So a lot of times, we go through these, right? We go through these things where we feel isolated. We feel like a lone wolf. We feel like, there's nobody there to love and support us. And, it's hard to know exactly how to come out of that. I know for me, part of coming out of that was realizing that connecting with other people and not being in my own head and generating, like lady number 2 said, generating love for myself was going to be really, really important at that time. Otherwise, who knows what direction I would have gone in. And Angela says, me too, right? Absolutely. Okay, so I have some questions to kind of like open this up, how we bridge this gap between loneliness and tapping into our vulnerability to heal the loneliness. Like, what is a great way to do that, right? So let's ask some questions. So what do you guys think about when you've desired connection or wanted connection? How did you begin to transform it? So if you were ever in a space of like feeling lonely, like what did you do to transform that feeling or to get out of that space? Anybody want to say? I have the quiet group tonight.
Oh,
They're like, lady number 1, you got nothing for us?
She's got something.
She does. I can see it. I can feel it.
As soon as like she feels like there's a lot more bubbling come from conversation,
Yeah.
I'll project. Lady number 2, I've been in a space where I've been lonely, but not in the sense like, you know, it was engulfing, it was painful, or it was a negative emotion. I'm an only child, so being alone is different than being. I've been alone and been really great. Yeah. And been in the company of others and been really great. I like to talk. That's why I'm still talking right now.
No, it's great.
But I'm being private. That's why I'm leaving number 2. But in terms of being lonely, the way I combat it or how I've done it is just being active. I can't stay still. Yeah. And I don't mean like just working out, moving around aimlessly, but having a purpose to get out of my own space, because loneliness is settled and my mind is inward thinking and I'm not able to connect. Yeah. So I'll go to the movies or I'll, walk my dog. I have a dog. So those are things that help. Social media helps. Yeah. We have a podcast conversation. Right. Sit down and connect. Those are just tactics, but you hard sometimes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What do you think, Kenya? You got anything on that?
I agree with that. When I start to feel lonely, I have to get out and be around people, even if I don't know them, even if I'm just in a room full of other people doing anything, going out to eat, going to the movies, I have to find something that interests me to take my head out of that space. Usually comedy works for me. Yeah. I love comedy. Right. So if I start laughing, then that feeling just goes away because I'm laughing and I'm enjoying the time being spent alone. And I like to be alone too because I do things sometimes that I don't have friends who have the same interests. So I don't mind going out by myself, but when I feel lonely is when I want to share the experience with someone and I'm alone. Yeah.
I got you. I hear that. Yeah. I hear that. Jamie says, one thing that I did when I was single and healing from a divorce, I decided to really indulge in the this thing's scrolling so fast. I decided to really indulge in the loneliness and allow the feelings to come out while learning to self-soothe those wounded parts of myself. She also says, I could do this with the belief that this loneliness was just temporary and that I knew my relationship with myself was most important. Pam says, I turn my ADJS, I don't know what that is, I turn my adjectives to verbs. I actively search out those things that make me feel connected. Lady number 2 hit it on the head. Yes, honey. And she says, Kenya, girl, look at you. Because you got used to you being up on camera. And I totally agree with you, ladies. I think that you're absolutely right. But this also goes back to our conversation of vulnerability. So the reason that I wanted to explore it is because I feel like it's like this. It's one of those things that when we're in a space of loneliness, all of the things that you guys talked about, I feel like they absolutely work. Getting out, getting connected. I have a dog too, or a dog that I take care of. So that absolutely helps with that sort of the empty feeling and the how do you fill yourself up and do all the self-care and things like that. But also I think that there's certain reasons that we end up in that lonely space in the first place. And it's usually some sort of belief that we have around something. whether it's that, you okay, honey?
Yeah.
Whether it's that we're in judgment of where we stand as far as if we're single or if we're in a relationship where it's not quite working, whether we have some negative beliefs that are working against us, that's what sort of fosters that loneliness. And so that's why I think it's so important to not just be able to express yourself vulnerably, but be able to be a safe space for vulnerability, for the vulnerability of others. And this is how we invite other people in to connect, is by being, that's what I think. What do you ladies think about that when I say that? And what do you think of? Like, what comes up?
When you invite other people in to connect?
Yeah, like the idea of being a safe space for someone else's vulnerability.
Love it.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
What is it you make it mean when you hear it? Like, what do you think that is? Like,
I can only speak for myself and who I am categorizing, but I tend to be nurturing, and I don't think that's unique. I like to create a space where people feel comfortable being themselves. I don't like being around people who like they have to put up their guard, like they can't have themselves. It's palpable. You feel that energy. As I've gotten older, I'm actually more attuned, and I make it my purpose to really break that down. Not like combatively, but disarm them. Treat them with kindness, especially now. I mean, in general, part of the vulnerability I think that people don't want to get into is being unsafe, not secure, especially in a space where people are so much more ready to say something mean-spirited or cynical or undermine, undermine you negative, just negative in general, to your point. So, kindness is now a weapon. Yeah. It's a form of activism, it's a form of, trauma is a form of vulnerability or getting someone else. So, I enjoy it a lot.
I love that. Lady number 2. Now, with the access to that, though, because I don't think that necessarily, I agree with you. I think that as women, nurturing is inherently built in us, but I also don't think it's like you were saying, people don't tend to, are not automatically vulnerable. And it's like, how do we even identify whether we are someone who is a safe space for someone's vulnerability? The fact that you know to even be kind to someone in order to have them open up in the hopes that they'll open up, because we can't be attached to how someone responds to however we behave, right? But I have some questions where I think they're not questions necessarily, that we're answering with definitive answers, but it's the questions that we need to ask ourselves when we wonder. Like, if you're in a space of loneliness, you have to wonder, am I a safe space for people to connect with me? So I got to ask myself, am I judgmental or consistently critical? Do I have a hair trigger or default to anger when I don't like what I hear? Do I tend to be a no for what people offer me and a yes for what people ask of me? You know how when people are in that people-pleasing space, where they're a yes for everything and then, overwhelmed, but then a no for support, a no for what people, are offering and trying to contribute to us. A lot of times we don't want to hear anybody else's advice, or, we just want to kind of unload on them about, what we want to say. So, do you celebrate other people's wins with genuine desire to see them succeed? Are you rigid in your ideas about what people should or shouldn't do, be, or have? Sometimes you have people who are very rigid about what the rules are around life, what the rules are around relationships. I always say, especially with women, it's like whatever you're doing, everybody around you wants you to be doing the other thing. Like if you're having a baby, you should be like having that baby and then getting on to the next baby. If you're single, you need to be worried about getting married. If you're married, you got to be worried about having that baby. Like there's always that next thing that people always have an expectation for. So, the thing to look at, I think, when we're in a space of loneliness is being willing to do the inner work and ask ourselves those inner questions to even get to that point that you're even talking about, being able to be kind and kill with kindness and all of that. Because I don't think that when we are critical and judgmental, we even, if we're not cognizant of it, we even know how to do that. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I just fire hosed you.
Well, all those questions you just asked, some of them I have definite no's to. Like, I always feel like I'm a nice person. Like, I always feel like, I'm open to any conversation. Anyone can come to me and talk to me about anything, and I won't judge them. I won't make them feel like self-conscious about what they're telling me. I won't criticize them But then there are times when I have my own opinions about certain things, and I wonder if I come across as someone who is being critical when I'm trying to help the person, like give them advice, or or sometimes I wonder if I give advice when it's not asked for. In that moment, like sometimes people just want to let out what they're feeling, and they don't want a response; they want an ear. But sometimes I'm like, yeah.
I love that you brought that up, though, because let me say this, though. I agree with you that sometimes that is the case, but I think a lot of times when people just want to, they just want that ear to vent whatever it is, venting is not vulnerable. Venting is that thing that we do when we have framed something in a negative way, and then we want to unload it. Like either we want to fuss about somebody else, or we want to fuss about the job, or whatever. And so I think that to be in a space of wanting to, and I'm a solver, and it's gotten me in a lot of trouble with friends that want to come and just vent. I'm like, no, okay, you can talk about it for a minute, then we got to talk about solutions, because we ain't gonna sit here and just be in a negative space. But I think that's the thing about being a safe space for vulnerability. It's like, if you're offering me your vulnerability, then I can open up to being a safe space for that. But if what you're offering me is your hardness or your negativity, or you're dumping whatever's going on with you onto me, or if it's I got to be in complaint mode, then I don't necessarily think you have to be a safe space for that. But a helpful space. You could be a solution space. Oh, we have a caller. Hold on, y'all. Hi, welcome to Ask for Candy. Hello. Hi. Pam. Who is it?
Pam.
Hi, Pam. Pam calling in.
Hey.
What do you want to say, Pam? I know you always have some nuggets.
Well, I want to listen to the comments and then I'll comment.
Huh? You want to listen to the comment and then you'll comment?
Yeah.
Oh, we just finished commenting and then we answered. What do you want to hear? You want me to say it again?
Hey, girl.
Huh?
It's Pam.
Yeah, I know, honey. What do you want to call in and say? Did you have something? Huh? Hello.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Okay.
Okay.
So, there's a couple of things that I want to comment on, and I think it's a great topic. Number one. Number two. Yeah, I know. What do you want to call it and say?
Our connection is so bad.
Okay.
Pam, do me a favor, Pam. Do me a favor. Can you hang up and call back again? Because our connection is bad.
Got it.
Okay, just call right back, because it's just, I don't know, it's a weird connection. It's not the greatest reception.
Got it.
All right, okay.
Okay.
All right, so Pam's going to be calling back. In the meantime, I see that, yes, what's up?
There's a way, if your phone and your laptop are on Wi-Fi, the phone call can come up.
Why didn't it come up, though?
Are they both in the same?
They're connected.
They're both in the same Wi-Fi.
Oh, I didn't sign in on the Wi-Fi here.
So if your laptop is on the Wi-Fi and that's on the Wi-Fi, then it will come through, and then we can all hear it through the mic.
Thank you for that, lady number two.
No problem.
See, y'all know it doesn't take long for people to know that I need help with the tech stuff. Because you do too.
Yeah,
but thank you for that. Because I always because it happens at home. Anyway, we're totally off topic. I want to say hi to some of the people: Yolanda, Halinatu, Anthony, Rory. Welcome, people, and Tim. Hi, everybody who's coming in. We are doing a little technical thing right now because I'm trying to make sure that Pam can call back and be able to join the conversation, because I know Pam always has nuggets. So Pam, I hope that you're planning to call back right now, because she always has good wisdom. All right, we're all hooked up on the same Wi-Fi. In the meantime, while we're waiting for Pam, let's talk about what were we in the middle of? Child, I'm getting old.
All of the questions that she answered, saying that
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You were saying some of them you would say no to in that you don't feel like you do those things.
Right.
Yeah. I have to say, though, there's been times where I've done almost all of these things, if I'm completely honest. And I can't say that I don't still do some of them. Like, when I'm not, we all want to be in our higher selves, right? We all want to be in a space of enlightenment. But there are times when I have hair trigger anger and default to anger first, right? And I feel like, when it comes to getting to know people, especially when it comes to dating and stuff like that, not helpful. No, it didn't. That's okay. We're going to try again. I think we'll have a, hi, Pam, is that you?
Yes.
Okay, Pam's called back in. You're on, Pam. What were you about to say, my love?
So just, about being open and being a receptacle, and being that safe space. I think that is really important. I know that, and your comment about, venting, but taking the space, being still, and actually listening. And listening to what the person to whom you're speaking is saying, and not listening to respond. And always agreeing and turning that back, and we just, we do it. Someone will say something and we'll go, yes, that happened to me too.
Yeah.
And it takes the focus off the person with whom we're trying to be vulnerable, and you are now the spotlight. So I do like what you had to say, about the stillness and making sure that we are in a position to create those spaces that people can connect.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I love what you're saying, Pam. So what you're saying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that it when someone is coming to us and they do have like issues, problems, things like that, the idea is if we're in a present listening space and open to listening, that is acceptance of that's being a safe space for them. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be something that, it's a concern.
Yeah.
I know for me, I'm looking, I don't even ask, people, what I'm asking for is like, do you have good news? Anything.
Yeah.
A graduation, a birthday coming up, you're going to a wedding, whatever it is, I actively search out good news, positivity, not only because it makes me feel, good, but people want to share that.
Yeah.
And have the opportunity. And I think we also have to create the space for people to be able to share good news as well as things that are challenging in our lives.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Because I feel like, too, and you can tell me if you agree, but, our culturally, it's almost like we bond over our mishaps and over our problems, right?
Yeah.
I was talking to a couple of my clients, and they're a couple, and she was saying, I said, let's talk a little bit about what you do want, because we've had a lot of conversation about what you don't want. And she said, I just want to be able to come to him when I've had a hard day. I want to be able to come to him when things haven't gone right and I don't feel great. I want to be able to come to him when I want to cry. And I'm like, and for his part, I'm thinking, that's the only reason you want to come to him, because there's got to be more than that, right? And there can't always be this expectation that you're that to be close to someone.
Therapist.
Huh?
He's not a therapist.
Yeah, exactly, and we do that. I feel like we do that.
That's why you pay. You pay $1.25. That's what you do.
Yeah.
But if that's the expectation, sometimes you have to go and find your sustenance where, it's being provided. And sometimes it may not be with your partner. It may be, with, a girlfriend or, a family member. I think that's a heavy burden.
Yeah.
To share.
Also, it's important, I think, to not use up the listening. Like, I think that's what we can often do when we're venters, is use up the listening. So then it's, even with someone who wants to be a safe space for us, it's like, if what you come to them with is always your negative and what's going on with you and, that's negative, then after a while, they start to identify you as the person who always has problems. Right?
Yeah, and it's going to feed your loneliness.
Yeah.
You'll lack the connection. You'll let that disconnection and disempowerment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Pam, for calling in.
Thank you.
I love it. Bye, honey. You can call back if you want. We're going on. Okay. Bye, honey. So I see Amanda. Hi, Amanda. Just joined. Amanda's one of my business coaches. So, so the thing about being a safe space, I think some of the other things that I feel like I would admit to is the judgmental or critical. So though sometimes we have a framework or an idea of how other people should be or how other people have to be in order to, whatever, exist in this world. And sometimes I feel like a lot of us are raised with judgment and criticism.
Yeah.
So we tend to approach our relationships that way. What do you guys think about that as far as your experiences with judgment and criticism? And anybody want to share anything?
As far as opening up to a person, if I know that person is judgmental and critical, I won't open up as much. It won't feel like a safe space for me to be vulnerable in, because it'll feel like I'm being kicked when I'm down.
Yeah.
And it will feel like, in a way, like I'm being turned away from the person. Like if the person doesn't want to be in that space, I understand. Don't bring me negativity, don't bring me down. I get that.
Yeah.
But if there is something that I really want to get off my chest, especially with a spouse, like with the woman who says, she just wants to be able to go to him. If she feels she can't go to him and she does turn to someone else, it may not be your girlfriend or a therapist. Then what happens? Yeah,
no, I get what you're saying, because I feel like there is that, a lot of times there's that mentality that if that person is not, but here's the thing too, because this all comes down to expecting that someone else has to fill us up.
Yeah.
Right? Like if it's your lover, your friend, your mother, your family member, whatever, this expectation that the people who love us or the people we love have to fill us up.
Yeah.
Like when I talk about being a safe space for vulnerability, I think that, when we're in a space of complaint and loneliness, the idea that something has to be given to us in order to be okay, I feel like is a pervasive idea, as opposed to, and that's that idea that someone's got to come and fill me up right now. I'm lonely, so someone's got to come and take care of that for me. When's he coming? Or, I got to call my friend now so I can vent about being lonely or, whatever. And so I think that when we're in that space, that's when we do things like, oh, well, you're not listening to me vent. I'm going to go talk to this other dude who wants to listen to me all night long and then, flip it to me. Like that's what happens when we're in that mind space, right?
How do we change the mind space though?
Well, I definitely think it goes back to what we were talking, and even lady number 2, you mentioned it, that self-love, that self-fulfillment, and that willingness to offer rather than feel like we need to get. Mm-hmm. Like, I think loneliness comes from not offering. Like when people say, oh, I don't feel love, nobody loves me. When people get in that space, I feel like, the best thing you can do is turn inward and ask yourself, how much am I offering? What am I contributing to other people? Like, how am I showing up for other people? Rather than what we often do, which is, yell at people for not being the way we were, especially when we're in relationships with them. Why don't you sit there and listen to me when I'm telling you my problems? Like, why don't you do this for me? Or why don't you act the way I want you to act? Like, we do that with this expectation that, it's their job to make it better for us. Yeah. What do you ladies think? Like...
You said a whole lot. I had so many things to say.
I fire hose sometimes. I fire hose.
No, it was like a book. And I'm like, okay, let's go back to the first point. I can't remember what it was. Generically, there's a whole bunch of things I was going to co-sign with Candy, and I was going to co-sign with you, Candy. In general, this conversation, I'm not going to ignore your questions. I'm just
Yeah.
As a headline, I feel like the loneliness I know this audience right here in this room is female. Loneliness is for non-gender.
I totally
specific.
agree with that. Yeah.
It is circumstantial. It is not forever.
Yeah.
It is conditioning. I think the upbringing that a lot of us have is not to really look inward to fulfill ourselves.
Yeah.
That is a learning lesson. And, you know, I had joy by going out.
Yeah.
I had joy by connecting with things that were outside my body. Getting mental about it and really thinking inside about, you know, and maybe, you know, prayer and faith can help in this a little bit more.
Yeah.
But even with that conditioning, you don't recognize you're praying for another
something outside of you.
Outside of you. So really getting to the point where you're talking about where you're self-fulfilled and you're self-loved, how great you are regardless of your it is to be alone, to be able to be alone, whatever the like conversations you have with yourself are. Yeah, that takes time. On the other hand, on that completely. But on the other hand, another thought I wanted to hear. We're going to maybe bubble it up in this conversation. Yeah, about men and women, or just I think is key. To address that, but I wonder about that whole desire I've had. This is me speaking about my circumstance. I've met individuals who were judgmental. Yes. Who I think I can fix. Yes. So I get it, and not because I want to fix, but I'm like, there's that glimmer. You know, a diamond in the rough. Yeah. Or a diamond, but I get there, and oh no, it's really like an ice cube. But still, I can make it into a diamond, or we can work it out. Yeah. Because I got a lot of love, or I got a lot of tolerance, or a lot of patience, or whatever you want to call it. So, what do you think about that? I know it's not the direction I want to go. But, you know, I'm exhausted by doing that, and that's just you know not just romantically. Yeah. About people who just are like venting. I do, but I have a balance. But someone.
Yeah. Oh, you absolutely can help someone like that. But here's the thing, because I actually was in I was in an abusive relationship, and it was very much like that. Like, just couldn't get him out of that negative space. And because I'm a healer and a fixer, and I can be happy enough for everybody, I felt like I could make it all okay. So I feel like that is a very common thing that we do. And like you said, it's not gender specific, because I feel like men can get in those situations too, where they're with a woman who she's just toxic and doesn't want to be happy. And I think the advice for that is, and Kenya and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, like a lot of times we feel like when something's not working with someone, we either have to fix it and force it to work, or we got to hurry up and run away, which can be difficult, because when we get in those situations, we do want to see that person be happy. We do want to fix that thing. And, you know, it's arguable to say whether what we feel for them is actually true love, but whatever we're feeling for them, it does come from a good place, like that wanting them to be able to live a full and a happy life, right? It comes from a good place. But what I always say, and I believe this so truly because I believe in faith and surrender, when we have feelings for someone, and that person is just not good for us, it's not about trying to shut off those feelings and stop what we're doing. It's about being in acceptance that we feel that way. And it's always about turning inward for like, how can I fill myself up in this space of being in a relationship that's not working? Because I will tell you, having been with an abusive narcissist and being an abusive narcissist myself in the relationship, that the moment I started actually focusing on my own wellness and filling myself up, all of a sudden he just wasn't game for it anymore. Meanwhile, he was like, would chase me down, call me, whatever, wanted to make sure we were going to be together. Like when I was in it with him and we were both sort of in that low vibrational space, it was like just there. And I'm like, how do I break up with him? Part of me loves him. And I see these moments where I feel like I'm fixing him. And then he goes to these other moments where he's horrible. But, you know, what I realized is the moment I remembered who I was and started to stand in that and love myself again. And I think earlier you were saying something about purpose and started to get purposeful, you know, and aligned with who I am. All of a sudden, he just lost interest in all of it. And my feelings just kind of like started to release because I was focused on what I could positively create. I didn't have to be like, you need to get out. I didn't have to throw his stuff out on the street or anything like that. It didn't have to be this ugly thing that we often resist when we're in that space that you're talking about. Like, we don't want to cut it off because then we're going to be in breakup mode, and nobody wants to go into breakup mode. And it doesn't have to be, it can be painful, but it doesn't have to be as painful, and it doesn't have to be a resistance or a control thing. I always say we don't have to move people in and out of our lives like chess pieces. All we have to do is get aligned. Because when we're self-aligned, we attract what aligns with ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Right?
That's why it's scary when I meet these judgmental cynical guys. I'm like, what's going on with my vibration?
Well, that's a great question. Like, it's always good to ask yourself, because I know there's places where I'm still judgmental and cynical. Mm-hmm. And I know that those are places that need to be healed. Mm-hmm. And those are places that need my focus and attention. So it's the willingness to ask ourselves and not make ourselves wrong for it.
Yeah.
Because what were we taught? What did we come up with, Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't want to steal any of the thunder from Lady One over here.
Lady One is quiet. We're going to ease her in. I feel like by show 4, she's going to be up on the camera.
like me, yeah.
She'll be texting you a question.
Right? But I love that you brought that up, because, I feel like that's what speaks to this vulnerability thing. And that's another reason why people are afraid to be a safe space, because then we feel like we're going to let somebody run roughshod over us, or be back in that situation where we're trying to fix someone who's toxic or not good for us. But, this vulnerability thing is so much about self-alignment and self-fulfillment. And even though it sounds selfish is actually a good thing, because when you're aligned with yourself, you can overflow onto people rather than hoping that they'll fill you up or trying to fill them up from an empty, unfulfilled, space, right?
That was huge.
Yeah.
It's something, so it seems
it's so easy to forget.
I'm just naturally just trying to go give to get, not be transactional, but like when you want to move forward, you feel like you have to put out the energy.
Absolutely.
Except for sleep, I'm really not thinking. And so that's a great point.
Yeah. And I hazard to even say that whenever we're in a space of focusing on what's missing, it's an immediate indication that we need to turn inward. Like, what am I not filling myself up with that I'm focusing on this, the fact that he's not moving fast enough. Or I'm focusing on the fact that he's not showing up in the way I would like to. Like, what needs to be looked at within myself that I'm attached to having him do it, number one, and that I'm having this need that's external of me. Yeah. So it's, I always think it's all good. It's all perfect. It's all there to grow us. And if we're willing to listen to it, the gut will answer that question. What do I need to heal? Sometimes we were talking earlier about abandonment. Yeah. The fact that I'm dating this guy, he starts ghosting me and then triggers all my abandonment issues. And it's like, it's not about, what we often do, which is try to talk to him and try to call him and try to make sure he knows we're still there or whatever, or try to ignore him and hope that he calls and, act cool about it or whatever. That's what that really is an indication that our abandonment stuff needs to be looked at. Because whatever he's doing and wherever he's going, he's either taking care of himself or figuring things out or whatever. And it's not for us to try to get somebody else to behave in a way that works for us. If they're not already there wanting to do it, it's a hard road trying to make somebody do, the things that you hope and want them to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they start off that way.
That often, absolutely.
Come in and you think that's where they're going. And then when it veers to the left, a little to the left, you're like, where did that come from? What did I do wrong? But
I get that. No, I totally get what you're saying, because it can feel like that. I feel like, a lot of times, especially, I feel like men and women often we date very differently. And I feel like one thing that we could take from men as far as dating is concerned is I feel like men date like they're shopping for fruit, like squeeze, 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 oh, I like this one. And especially if they're a guy who's marriage minded, like men who are marriage or commitment minded, if they really want, a woman, they're very like, well, let me test this one. Let me poke this one and see what happens. Let me test out this one. Like that's how men tend to approach it, I think. And you guys on the live can agree or disagree. Pam says trauma can drive you towards your purpose, not define it. Yes, exactly. I agree, Pam. But I feel like even when we're in the space of dating someone and they come right off the bat, like right out the gate, taking you out and being sweet to you and treating you good and doing all those right things, and it feels like what they want is a commitment, and they might even say, call you their girlfriend or whatever, like all that stuff that they could possibly do. And then, like you said, when they veer left, the key here is still to take that, because everything is something for us to use emotionally, and turn the focus inward and take it as an opportunity for, okay, let me get realigned with myself. If I'm so clear that what I want is somebody who's with me in my life, ride or die, and that's what I'm aligned with, that's what my actions are going to show. I know I don't want to marry somebody who I'm going to have to chase after. So if you set me up to have to be chasing after you to spend time with you, then I'm out of alignment when I'm chasing after you. It's not a moral conversation. It's not a right or wrong. It's just I have to know and be aware of what I'm doing when I go back and say, oh, I don't have what I want. Well, I don't have what I want because I'm not aligned with what I say I want. I'm messing around with this fool who's, and maybe he's not a fool. Maybe he's just, thinking of us in a different way than we're thinking of him, which often happens too, right? So, it always comes back to alignment. Even if somebody has told you, oh, we're going to be together, and then they stop showing up. Oh, we got a phone call, y'all. And our hour's almost over. Hello, welcome to Ask for Candy.
Hey, Candy, it's Pam again.
Hi, Pam again. What's up, honey?
Hey, okay, so I wanted to, to make a comment about vulnerability and sufficiency, which is what how I'm interpreting it.
Sufficiency.
Just listening to the comments one of the things that I think a lot of us do is we enter into relationships from a point of deficit where we the point that you made about not being full and always looking and wanting something and looking for that other person to fulfill those wants and those needs. But I think that we should also look, conversely, negating that vulnerability is not just a bad thing, that it can be a gift and can attract the type of energy that we are seeking. I think that when we open up and we take the risk of vulnerability under certain, circumstances, and I believe that people need to earn the right to be familiar with you. That is not something that we are going to give just automatically because, we're going out to dinner or he or she is saying, the right thing. I think that, that entree into that person, that inner core of that person requires a certain level of trust that is not easily given over.
See, wait, Pam, I don't want to interrupt you, but this is because you and I have talked about this before too, and I think this is where we differ with the vulnerability thing. Because I honestly think, and I think that what you're saying is perfectly reasonable, and I feel like a lot of people will back that up, and even people sing songs about it and stuff like that. And you'll see even like on the street where people paint "Protect Your Heart" and stuff. I honestly think that our vulnerability is actually our greatest strength. And even when you're just, let's say, out on a date with someone, I think it's vulnerable to just be, in alignment with your happiness, excited about what you're doing, like expressing yourself from a really authentic place can be vulnerable when we're so used to protecting ourselves and being in survival mode. So I don't know, and I know Brene Brown says it too, so I don't think you're wrong, but I don't necessarily think that it's about being conscious of saving your vulnerability for certain people. I feel like it's just, be as much as yourself.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that vulnerability, making yourself vulnerable, is a way that people actually experience your fabulosity. That instead of holding it back, that you can put yourself out there. Now, I'm not saying that are we talking about in intimate relationships? Are we talking about in our everyday interactions? What I'm saying is that vulnerability, being vulnerable, is taking a power position.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
And in all
So I'm not
relationships.
saying that you have to, but there are certain, there's just certain things because, there are people that don't mean us well. So we have to be still. But for the most part, to go out and to attract the things that we're looking for, I think takes a degree of vulnerability. I don't look at it as so much a protective factor, but an attractive factor.
Gotcha.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, I hear that. Thank you, honey. I totally agree with that. Thank you, Pamela. We're like almost to the end of the hour. Thank you for leaving us a nugget of wisdom. We're going to play the vulnerability quiz real quick, and then we're going to say good night. All right. Bye, sweetie. Are you still there?
Okay.
I'll talk to you soon. Kenya said bye. And Jamie said, I love hearing from you in the conversation, Kenya.
Oh, hi, Jamie.
And Tom joined, and Shanton, who was supposed to be here tonight, you were supposed to be our brave dude for the night, and you just showed up at the last few minutes. I see how you do. Anyway, so we, Kenya, or lady number 2, or even lady number 1, we do every show. We have this new segment that we're doing. I've only done it like a few times, but it seems to go pretty well. The vulnerability quiz, where we take normally 3 minutes, but we're down to 3 minutes. So I'd say 2 minutes to answer as many questions as possible. And we can pass if we want to, if it feels too vulnerable, or just be game and play. Kenya, you said you might be willing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you want to do it?
Yeah.
Lady number 2, any interest?
I'll see how it goes.
All right. So just keep in mind that we're very low on time, right? So we're going to do it in 2 minutes rather than 3, and we'll just see how many we get through. All right. Y'all ready?
Yes.
Okay. I'm starting now. Okay. What are you passionate about?
Growing. I want to grow.
Okay. Lady number 2.
That was a good answer. Growing and music.
Lady number 1. Okay. What's your purpose?
I don't know yet.
Okay. That's fair. Ooh, we got 1 minute left. Go ahead, lady number 2. What's your purpose?
To help people find their true selves through education.
Ooh, I love that. Now, hold on. Let me just say goodbye. But armed radio people, never forget you're a love machine. If you ever start to feel like you're not getting enough, just make more and ask for Candy. Thank you for being with us. I know we're going to fade out on the vulnerability quiz, but we're going to finish up with the Facebook Live people. I know we only have 1 minute and 20 seconds left on it, but I just wanted to make sure that I said I love you. Thank you for listening. Come back next Monday, and I'll talk to you then. Love you. Bye, armed radio.
Bye.
So name something you identify as a true expression of who you are.
I have to think about it, and it's not enough time.
Lady number 2.
When you're moving in the positive, your destination.
Oh, I like that. Okay. What's your deepest romantic desire?
To feel wanted in every way. Okay. That's it.
Lady number 2.
Be as one within the.
Love it. What's your favorite thing to do for someone you love?
Cook.
Okay.
Love.
Who do you? Oh, no, not that one. What accomplishment are you most proud of?
Being a great parent.
Good doggy parent.